Hey, Les.
Hello.
Thanks for taking this phone call podcast.
Yeah, of course.
I saw that you delivered your children's worship message. I wanted to kind of debrief with you about it. Do you want to tell me the process behind it, maybe? And then how you felt given it, and then maybe your feelings about it?
Sure. Well, I think to start, I wanted to say that I was part of a group of individuals who got asked to be trained to give to give a children's message. And Aaron and Auntie Katie put together this video course to give us tips and guidance on how to prepare a children's message. So I would say, without that guidance, I don't think I would have even attempted the big, I guess, act. Um, I think that pretty much up until last year, to be honest, I never had the thought that this is something on my bucket list. To one day give a children's sermon. It was never my desire, and I never really thought, it'd be great one day if I could do that or learn to do that. And about a year ago, I think I was just, as a parent myself with children in the elementary school program, I was just like praying for the kids. And the thought that came to my mind was it would be really great if I could learn to do it because this is like essential for children to evangelize to children. They need to learn the Word of God. And I know this is one of the things I never wanted to learn how to do. And so it was a year ago, pretty much, I just began to be open to learning the course to actually deliver a message. So that's kind of how it started. And then shortly after, I got invited by Auntie Katie to be trained to do it. And so I agreed to learn the process. That's how it started, Aaron.
Okay, a couple things. First thing is that
Yeah.
I think that I think when you say a video course, I think that's a little bit
Oh, too
too hard,
ambitious?
yeah, too hardcore. It wasn't a video course. It was
Yeah,
like
it was. It
no,
was.
it was basically like
A training, a training.
glorified podcast, where we did like it wasn't even video, it was just audio, and we sent you a YouTube link, and it was just us talking for like an hour
But
about it.
but though it was a course because like we had to take notes on it and we had to answer questions. So I took it really seriously. Like that was my only resource to learn how to create a children's message
Mm.
and then deliver it. So I count it as a course, like a mini course.
I'll take that. I'll take that. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Auntie Katie did like make it a little bit more buff. Yeah, she made it more interactive, where she expected you guys to do the like Google Forms, the back and forth and stuff. So I that's true. That
Mhm.
was good. That was good. And we had you guys do the in person, but we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
And then
Yes.
the other
Yes.
thing I wanted to say was, I didn't know that God had put it on your heart actually even before we reached out to the people.
Yeah, but only just a year ago. Like I said, it wasn't really one of those things I had aspired to do. I actually didn't really think I would ever do it because I just didn't see myself in this role.
Mm. Well, I mean, your name was one of the first ones that came up when we were thinking about who to do.
Yeah, I think, yeah, God definitely orchestrated that in the timing because, yeah,
Yeah.
I get it all worked out.
Yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, it's not like we just picked like random people that we're going to start from scratch. Like I think that we had the goal of choosing people where at least you were familiar with your Bible enough. It's not like it's not like you're starting from ground zero. Like I think we picked people that had enough Bible knowledge where we could send you like our course, I guess, and it would make sense. I think that if somebody came in with like zero knowledge of like children's ministry or zero knowledge of how to even begin reading or understanding the Bible, or even like trying to explain it even just for a little bit, then maybe it would have been a lot more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we try to pick people where, okay, if we give them this course, then it will enhance what they kind of already know. I think I hope that's what me and Nancy Katie were thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was definitely really helpful. And I think the hardest part, honestly, was that all of the work is very independent, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not like you get to partner up and ask someone, what do you think? I mean, I guess I could have asked for feedback, but like while you're studying the passage, it's very different than how I would normally do my own personal devos, or when I'm studying the Bible for myself. It's very different than studying the Bible with enough depth and clarity so that I could teach it.
Right.
So it's like two different types of like functions, I guess. Like to prepare the message, I actually had to study the passage, and based on our life stage, it's not like I'm really given that many hours of the day to sit and just study it until I'm done. So the process was really broken up into very messy 1 hour chunks where I was able to find the time. And I guess I did get a lot of time to prepare the message. We were given like, really far advanced notice. And what I found in studying it and thinking about it and praying about, or trying to extract the truths from the passage to teach, was that I just was able to meditate on this passage, and I found myself going really deep in prayer and in just like trying to interpret the context and extract truths and applications. So it was a very spiritually enriching process personally, and I do know that now I know that when people prepare a message or a sermon, they really are the ones that get blessed the most from the passage, because they're spending all this time thinking about it and writing about it. So
yeah.
That was a very new process for me. It was the first time I ever, I guess, wrote a children's message.
Yeah, let's talk about that process a little bit more. So we did like require you guys to actually write it out, right? And I think for you wrote a pretty good manuscript.
I wrote a really long one.
Yeah. Tell me about your process. I mean, you kind of already gave me some details where you're going pretty in depth, but yeah, maybe paint a picture of what that actually looked like, and then we had you present too. Yeah, so
as
you can
practice round.
Yeah. You can talk about that if that helped you, like what that brought to light. If anything, before you actually had to present.
Yeah, so the process of studying it to the end goal of writing about it in a manuscript form. And I told you it was done in like really messy chunks of whatever time I could find to get it done. I think the hardest part is that like you can only write about something you have a very clear thought about. So I actually spent a lot of time just studying the passage and reading commentaries about it. And I had so many questions about the passage, which was about Jesus as the Son of God. That was my main idea. And it was a passage from Matthew chapters 3 and 4, Jesus' baptism and his temptation. And even though those are stories I'm very familiar with, it was completely challenging to write a message, because the message itself, it's not like you're just sharing facts with the kids. You have to like give them facts in the context as best as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end goal is to come up with the biblical truths, and like what our church does is like a main idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly is really hard to do those things. So when I studied the passages, I had to come up with my own outline, and then I would take notes on it, and I was really trying to narrow in on like what the main points were, the main truths. And then from there, when I first wrote my manuscript, I just wrote all my thoughts on paper down because I needed to flesh out my thoughts. What I learned about myself is that I have too many thoughts about the passage. I made like too many connections that weren't really supporting the main idea, that I was the big idea at the end. So during the time when I was giving my practice round, I wanted to feel out what it was like to read the manuscript. And on the practice day, I was actually really nervous, feeling like a really heavy weight because I was very much confronted by my own like personal insecurities about teaching the Bible. I think that's like one of my big insecurities. Like, I don't really think I'm the person that should be teaching the Bible because I don't think I'm good at it. So yeah, it was quite heavy on my heart to just deliver it. But once I got it done, got over myself, I was able to understand, okay, in order to really deliver this message, I really have to be focused on the main truth of the passage and then like just work towards it. So I think going through the process and getting your guys' feedback and watching my awkwardly watching myself the practice round really helped me understand, okay, this is how I need to change where I'm at to get to what I think the sermon needs to be like.
Yeah, thanks, Les. Thanks for putting in the work. So yeah, I mean, I hear you on all of that stuff. It does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of prep, and on top of that, we made you do it in front of us with the video recording. So yeah, I mean, it is sort of like a lot of pressure. So I don't necessarily think you're wrong to feel the burden. I think you're incorrect in saying that you're not supposed to be teaching or whatever. I believe that we're all teaching in some specific way, but I know what you're talking about. You're talking about getting in front of people or the group of children or whatever and delivering the Sunday sermon. That's what you're talking about. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, it is like a projection of my own insecurities, right? I judge myself to only be good at certain things, and doing this was something I always judged myself to be poor at. So I'm in the conviction, I know, I mean, even as a parent, it's like we're supposed to be helping others to observe Jesus's commands through his word. So it is a responsibility of Christians and parents to know the word and to make disciples by teaching the word.
Yeah.
But coming up I mean, it was a privilege to go through this process, but it was also very challenging.
Well, Les, you did a great job. I'm glad that you did it. Let's talk about actually delivering it, and then just how you feel now that it's all done.
Okay, so I feel like the thing I really had to consider was how I was going to present my message. And I really relied on my PowerPoint to guide me, because when it came down to it, I think that my speaking to kids works best when I'm not reading from the script. So I really wanted to connect with them. And I think in order for me to do that, I had to like look at them more than like the piece of paper in front of me. So I was really relying on my memory, on my outline. And I relied on the visuals from my PowerPoint. So I made sure my PowerPoint would flow me through the message. I also feel like during the actual message, I was really practicing faith because I wasn't reading the script. So I was really praying that God would, at that moment, just speak through me. And I spent the last week preparing for the message just in prayer because my message was already written and I had already finished my PowerPoint slides. So I really, I'm not the type of person that wants to rehearse my script. I just prayed. I prayed for the kids, and I was really praying that God would allow the truths from the passage to connect with the kids and that they would grow in their faith as a result of those truths. I when I finished, I was like, "Whew, like I'm done." And I felt like, I did the best I could, and so I have to leave the results to God. If it was a fail to someone else, like at least I was faithful, and I know like God knew my heart. And I think that the focus I was really trying to have during the presentation was that we cannot serve God with our own strength. I think that I was reminded that we really operate under the power of the Spirit and the guidance of Him. And so I felt like at that moment, I really was relying on the Spirit to do the work through me, of course.
Yeah, I think that's. I think that's good. I think even in the training, I think I told you guys that I don't. I try not to take my manuscript up there. I don't really. Yeah, I did what you did, which is I go off my slides, and let that take the flow. I think it's actually really good that you were able to spend a whole week before in prayer. That's something that sometimes we're not afforded. With
Of course,
the time crunch, and
yes.
so I think that's really good, Les, and I'm glad that you were able to get through it and actually deliver a cohesive and a solid message. So yeah, thanks for doing it. Thanks for doing it. I actually want to say again, you did a good job, and this was only your first one, and now that you've done your first one, you can move on to your next one, God willing, at some other time, right? You said so.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the whole hope of training people is so that we can get people to rotate in, right? So that there's more of a teamwork and more people to share the load of teaching the children. And so thanks for being a part of this first go round with this group of teachers. I think it's a good thing for our church. I think it's a good thing for you as an individual, us as people. And I think it's a good thing for our children too. So yeah, thanks for
Mm-hmm.
doing it, Les.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Les. This was fun. It's fun. We haven't talked for a while. Now that now that you know that you can do these phone podcasts, maybe we can do more. But I'll always be waiting for Walnut Woman to return in a good 10, 20 years or so, when there's more time.
We'll see. The podcast and like doing children's, sermons. They're two different things. I feel like yeah. I think the last thing I would say
Mm.
is just as an encouragement
Oh yeah.
is that um, you know, a lot of times when we look at people in the church and we, judge their adequacy in serving God, or we just feel like, oh, this person really is a blessing in what they do. And a lot of times, like those gifts are newer to the individual, or sometimes they've been practicing it like for years and years, so it's like really smooth and natural for them. And going back to what I said at the beginning, that this is really something I had not planned to do in my lifetime. I think that everyone should always pray and ask God, what do you have for me next? Because I think that for me personally, God was really helping me to just trust him, that if he assigns us certain tasks to do to serve him, he will like equip us for it. And I definitely felt like um, he had to do that for me in order for me to, you know, write my message and deliver it. It really was something that was unexpected in my life.
Mm. That's a good last encouraging word, Les. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for doing the
Yeah.
pod.